Today on Ag News Daily.
Dairy industry as a whole, from what we see, has been a very interesting year. The political spectrum has been tough. Milk prices as well has been hit and miss. But as a whole, we see a lot of optimism in the dairy industry.
Well, welcome back to the weekly edition of the Ag News Daily Show. It says to banter about National Farmers Day.
It's on Sunday.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well,
be in the field?
Happily,
Right?
yes, we will be.
Okay.
Happy National Farmers Day. That's kind of cool. We got a day.
We do.
Oh, boy. What a rough start. But even then, maybe the weather has a little bit of roughness to their portion as well. We saw record heat, but now we've got a cold front that finally brought relief to parts of us here in the Midwest. Temperatures dropped 25 to 35 degrees overnight. Some rain did move through the northern plains, which helped improve some of their drought conditions by adding some water to that Mississippi River system as well. A few showers are still possible here late this week into the weekend, but otherwise we've got drier weather, Delaney, that will allow for harvest conditions to continue. Temperatures are expected to rebound over this weekend, with highs returning back into the 80s. Some of the central U.S. could see 90s, as well as folks down in the southern plains. Meanwhile, the western U.S. will see slightly cooler temperatures, 3 to 8 degrees below average, with a persistent west coast trough. Ooh, early morning words. That'll be developing in that area. We look ahead, though. Weather models suggest a more volatile pattern here late in October and early in November. Wetter conditions are forecasted for the western U.S. plains, as well as the Canadian prairies and here in the Midwest. Other dryness may persist in Texas through the Delta and other parts of the Southeast. I will tell you, it did feel very weird going from sweating all day, every day, to I need to find my sweatshirts and vests.
Well, you seem very spunky, even with harvest in full swing.
You got to stay full, maybe even if the energy is artificial.
Well, the USDA, of course, did not release the latest crop progress report because of the ongoing government shutdown. The agency's Economic Statistics and Market Information System website, which normally hosts the report, stated it will not be updated during this funding lapse. But this is not the first time we've seen a shutdown disrupt corn progress reporting. During the 30-day shutdown that spanned in 2018 into 2019, reporting was halted, and a previous shutdown in fall of 2013 canceled reports on October 7th and 14th. When reporting resumed in 2013, references to the missing weeks data were recorded as NA, so that is likely what's going to happen this go-around. But what we do know is there's a lot of harvest that continues to happen throughout the Midwest. We're getting rolling. Hopefully we'll finish soybeans up this week and get into corn. And just driving through Iowa this week, lots of folks in the field. Yeah,
I've pretty much been from the eastern to the western side of Iowa, it feels like. And yeah, quite a few machines running, as well as some of that fall tillage getting started. But more on the government shutdown. The federal government has now been shut down for over a week. And Emily Buckman, the director of the government relations for the American Farm Bureau Federation, stated that the reason why is because of Republicans, who hold a majority in both the House and the Senate, have been pushing for a clean funding bill, one that is without controversial policy provisions attached, while Democrats have called for a short-term funding measure that addresses the Affordable Care Act premium subsidies that are set to expire at the end of this year. So we don't have a lot of updates on that side of things, besides the fact that the House has passed a continuing resolution to fund the government into November. The Senate then is now considering that measure, but Buckman says cooperation between both chambers is essential to end this shutdown and restore the stability amongst the government organizations. Seems like a lot of headlines and a lot of folks within agriculture are directly affected by this, so hopefully we can get some type of restoration done quickly.
Well, California has officially become the final state in the nation to approve the sale of E15 fuel. Governor Gavin Newsom signed Assembly Bill 30 into law last week after it passed unanimously in both chambers. The legislation immediately allows retailers to sell the lower-cost 15% ethanol blend, of course, across the state. It's a little surprising, right, Tanner, that they are the last state, since they are usually a greener state. But Growth Energy CEO Emily Skor says this is a major victory for both California drivers and American farmers. SCORE says E15 offers a more affordable fuel option that most drivers can use without upgrading their vehicles. She also adds that allowing E15 sales will not only help families save money at the pump, but also create new demand for American-grown ethanol, supporting, of course, the nation's agriculture economy and more specifically the nation's corn farmers.
Can I make an off-color joke?
I suppose.
I've thought most of their cars out there ran on electricity anyway.
Well, we probably should look and see what that actual number is. But recent studies have shown that E15 could save California drivers $2.7 billion annually, or about $200 per household, while significantly cutting tailpipe pollutants, which we do know is important for a lot of California residents.
And for all residents as well. Speaking of biofuels, the EPA's plan has come out of a bipartisan group of 47 lawmakers that include both chambers of Congress, calling for the Environmental Protection Agency to finalize their proposal and to update the RFS program. The legislators sent a letter to the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin last week before the government shutdown, urging him to move forward with the plan, which aimed to strengthen the domestic biofuels market and reduce reliance on imports. This group also then said that this proposal represents a common sense approach that supports American farmers, bolsters the rural economies, and ensures that the renewable fuel standard continues to deliver benefits in America. Unfortunately, this was delivered right before the government shutdown. Under the EPA's June proposal, the agency would increase the renewable volume obligation, or the RVO. This amount, which is the amount of renewable fuel required to be blended into the nation's fuel supply, it would also then reduce the value of the Renewable Identification Numbers, or RINs, for foreign-produced fuels and components, while shifting a certain compliance costs from small refineries to the larger ones. Lawmakers do say that by lowering those RINs, the values for imported fuels would provide a much-needed stability for this U.S. biofuel sector, offering critical support to farmers and rural communities across the country. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that, Delaney, to find out, once the government fires back up again, what progress will be made coming from RFA.
Well, as trade tensions with China continue, the U.S. is seeking new markets for American soybeans, with no soybeans purchased yet for this marketing year from the country. President Trump's trade team is working to expand sales across Africa and Asia to offset the loss of one of the nation's biggest buyers, as the director of National Economic Council at the White House, Kevin Hassett, said in a CNBC interview earlier this week. But as we know, all trade negotiations have come to a halt as well due to that government shutdown. However, in that interview, he said U.S. soybean customers around the world are part of that trade negotiation, and he added that the Trump administration was also getting ready to have some really strong policies to support our farmers. With silos full and exports slowing, Beijing has turned to Brazil and Argentina for soybean supplies, leaving U.S. producers searching for alternatives. According to the USDA, American soybean exports totaled more than $30 billion in fiscal year 2024, with China accounting for nearly half of those, with about $12 billion in purchases last year alone. And as we mentioned earlier, no purchases for this marketing year. So we are behind the eight ball, Tanner.
Yeah, quite interesting to figure out where soybean exports are going to come from. Good to see there's folks working on that at this point in time. Well, the lower Mississippi levels for the fourth year in a row are along the Ohio and Mississippi rivers are now expected to drop to those critically low levels. The conditions are already forcing shippers to lighten their loads for grain barges, cut capacity, and are now driving up transportation costs. Gary Williams, the director of the Upper Mississippi River Water Association, told AgriPulse this week that the situation is putting additional strain on producers. He said that between low commodity prices and high shipping costs, corn and soybean growers are looking to stash their commodities in every nook and cranny they can find. That's a direct quote. Delaney. Mike Steenhoek, the executive director of the Soy Transportation Coalition, warns that if these river levels continue to drop, farmers could face even greater losses. He states that the inefficiencies that will be caused by this limited barge movement will cut into profits and further challenge the agricultural supply chain. We're already seeing basis reflect some of this, Delaney, which I'm sure you'll get into in your marketing report.
We certainly will, Tanner, but let's talk winter wheat, as USDA is projecting this year's winter wheat crop to be the largest in nearly a decade. Of course, this came before the government shutdown. Anthony Prilliman, a Southern director for the National Agricultural Statistics Service, otherwise known as NASS, said that this year's production of 1.4 billion bushels is the highest since 2016. He also says the strong numbers are driven in part by near-record yields in wheat as well. The average yield for 2025 was estimated at 54.9 bushels per acre, and he noted that is up slightly from our previous forecast at USDA and 6.2% higher, or about 3.2 bushels more, than last year. NASS reports that total U.S. wheat production is estimated at just under 2 billion bushels, up less than 1% from a year ago, but still above industry expectations. So those reports, of course, came out pre-government shutdown, Tanner.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll continue to get similar reports when it comes to corn and soybeans as production continues to come in and that data becomes available. Delaney, do you have any of that fancy high-vis clothing? You know, the stuff that people can see you from miles away in?
I don't. Do you?
I probably do, not realizing it is high-vis. But it's a trend and important for safety. Our own Michelle Stangler was at the World Dairy Expo last week and heard not only about some fashion with Elizabeth of 4D Ag Fashion, but also heard from Brom of 4D Ag World about what is happening in the beef and dairy industries. So let's jump into her interview right now.
As you can see, we're talking dairy in this interview. Love the outfits. We're talking with 4D Ag Fashion and Ag World. So going to start here with you, Brom. Tell me a little bit about who is 4D Ag World and Fashion.
We are a company that's been in the dairy industry for 10 years. Prior to that, we were dairymen ourselves, and we pride ourselves on delivering very good clothing for the dairy industry, and also freestyle equipment, ventilation systems, and so on.
So that's the Ag World side.
That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about the Ag Fashion side.
Yeah, like Brom said, it's the fashion clothing. So it's the aprons for the milkers, the day-to-day sleeves they use, the towel pouches, and then the fun stuff. So we have the coveralls, we have the accessories, but mostly we focus on the bibbed overalls, waterproof, work shirts, coveralls, and a lot of aprons. And calf jackets. Don't forget about the calf jackets. That is, I think we're one of the biggest calf jackets suppliers in the world. So we're pretty proud of that. Yes, ma'am.
Well, why don't we get started on the Ag World side? Tell me about what your perspective is on the state of the dairy industry.
Dairy industry as a whole, from what we see, has been a very interesting year. The political spectrum has been tough. Milk prices as well has been hit and miss. But as a whole, we see a lot of optimism in the dairy industry, and guys are still looking for solutions to upgrade, to build for new projects, waiting for opportunities with milk plants to be able to deliver more milk. And so overall, for the things that the dairy industry has been through, they're super resilient and looking forward to the future. So
some of that equipment side, are you seeing any impact on costs for you all? Is that a challenge?
We had a very interesting summer with importing, with tariffs. We have worked with our customers to limit that influence, sourcing more stateside what we can, holding off a little bit on imports to try and mitigate some of that. But as a whole, it's certainly been very interesting. But we've been making do with the customers, and that's part of having good customers as well, that you can have those conversations.
It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, as you think about our farmers, are they investing right now? Kind of where's that at, would you say?
As a whole, from our company standpoint, we haven't seen any hesitation. There's certainly been thoughts on is it a good time, but as a whole, nobody's backed up and stopped the project. And we have a tremendous amount of blueprints going forward of people that are still planning to continue on business as usual. So that's been pretty cool to see.
I know that you have fans, you have mats, is it?
Yes.
Tell me about, where is your specialty that's an area growth that you see is for you all?
We pride ourselves on cow comfort. So whether it comes to freestall equipment or our high traction flooring and milk parlors and so on and so forth, it's a cow health aspect, it's a hoof health aspect, ventilation, it comes into cow cooling. Every product has the cow in mind, the dairyman in mind, and we can deliver very good quality at a very good price point. So that wraps it up.
Yeah. Well, as we look at the fashion side, first tell me about these outfits. How did these outfits come about?
Like I said before, we focus on the aprons and the sleeves and the pouches and the calf jackets and the bibs, but every year we need to add some fun items. Also, first of all, to get some people in the booth. Second of all, who doesn't want to be fashionable? And let's be honest, look around you at this show. It is cow print here, cow print there, cow print everywhere. We started with the cow print already a year ago, so we were a little bit ahead, but your backpack is even cow print. I mean, so we like to add some new items, but all those items are a one other deal. So next year you will not find these shirts anymore. You will find something else. So that's about 40 Ag fashion. That's a fashionista part. Get some new stuff in, but also get some people in the booth because people want to talk about nice shirts.
Now, high vis is something that you're talking about a lot. Why?
Yes, ma'am. So we are in West Texas. In West Texas, we don't have small dairies, We have large-scale dairies. It is almost becoming mandatory now to have your employees in something high-vis. It can be a safety vest. It can be a coverall. Even the insurance companies now ask if there's an accident. They ask, what were they wearing? What did you do to make your employees high visible? We already started with it 5 years ago, actually, on the bibbed overalls. We already put high-vis reflectors on there. Some people were like, oh, this is a little bit too much. Now they want to buy our bibs because of the high-vis reflectors, and even the work shirts we came out with this year, the coveralls we came out with this year, and we think it's the future. We know it's the future. So, slowly we're getting to the high-vis mandatory.
So then how do you see it evolving over time here?
It sounds a little bad, but if there's an accident on the farm, a lot of people after that, they say, we really need to do something. But that's where those shows come in too. They don't go to 40agfashion.com to see if we have some high-vis. They walk into the booth and they see some high-vis products, and then they say, and this is what we were looking for. So that's why those shows are really important too, and then they will start buying it.
Now, I know we talked about equipment to fashion. To our listeners who may not be aware, what's the relation between the 40 Ag World and the fashion piece?
Great question. So we started 10 years ago with 40 Ag World. Then we added some calf jackets as well. We have our own manufacturing facility in India. My husband and I, that is his dad and I, lived in India for 4 years. So we have the friends and the people there we know. Now we have a business partner. We own the manufacturing facility with him. So everything is made in-house. So then the calf jackets were still under 40 Ag World. But within 2 years-ish, it became growing so fast. And then we added the aprons and the sleeves and everything. So we said we need separate LLCs. His dad and Bram and me own the businesses.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how can people stay in touch with you too?
40agfashion.com, 40agworld.com.
Yes.
All the phone numbers are all over Facebook and email addresses. It's very easy to connect with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bram and Elizabeth, for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you, Michelle, for doing this.
Well, Farmer Sentiment Health Study in September as the Purdue University SLEME Group's Ag Economy Barometer rose 1 point to a reading of 126. However, producers' view of current conditions and future expectations moved in opposite directions. The index of current conditions dropped 7 points to 122, while the index of future expectations rose 5 points to 128. The survey followed USDA's September crop production and World Agricultural or WASDE supply reports, reflecting concerns over record high corn and soybean yields putting downward pressure on prices. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that report next month since we don't have a WASDE report here for October. But optimism about the future was fueled by farmers' belief that U.S. policy is headed in the right direction and expectations that potential government support, similar to the 2019 Market Facilitation Payment Program, could help offset lower commodity prices. Still, the Farm Financial Performance Index slipped 3 points to 88, marking the third straight month of declining confidence heading into 2025. Fewer producers also said on that report now is a good time to make major investments, pushing the Farm Capital Investment Index down 8 points to 53, and short-term farmland value expectations also weakened for the fourth consecutive month, with fewer farmers expecting values to rise and more anticipating that they will hold steady. That's a look at the Ag Economy Barometer's study, Tanner.
Yeah, I was on a farm in eastern Iowa this week, and they were in the middle of constructing 2 new cattle sheds that were next to 2 existing cattle sheds. And they were reminiscing on the cost difference between investing in the 2 new ones compared to the cost of the 2 they had just done a couple years ago. It's still significantly priced higher as far as that goes.
Well, it is interesting to note that it's a little bit of a discrepancy, right, between corn and soybean farmers and those working in the livestock space. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to keep a tab on those surveys. And like you said, the next one will be quite interesting, too, without a WASDE to go off of. But we'll have that result for you coming up in a future show. We do see here that the Federal District Court had ruled this week on a lawsuit that was challenging the USDA's electronic identification, or EID tags, the mandate that for certain cattle and bison that can move forward. The decision issued September 30th by the U.S. District Court for the District of South Dakota denied a USDA motion to dismiss the case filed on behalf of cattle producers. The rule, which took effect in November of 2024, requires electronically readable EID tags for sexually intact cattle and bison 18 months or older, all dairy cattle and animals used in shows, rodeos, or expositions that cross state lines. The USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service currently provides the tags at no cost through state veterinarian offices, but the court questioned whether that funding would be continued over the long term. Now, this lawsuit that was brought by the New Civil Liberties Alliance on behalf of RCAF USA, the South Dakota Stock Growers Association, the Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance, and several individual producers argued that the rule is costly, that it was unnecessary, and exceeds the USDA's authority. One of the plaintiffs' claims was dismissed, but the court allowed the challenge to proceed on the ground that the rule may be arbitrary and, what's
capricious.
that word? Capricious. Big fancy words this morning for me. RCAF USA, the CEO there, Bill Boulard, said that the case will now be moved to the summary judgment phase. He calls the EID requirements a costly burden that limits producers' freedom to manage their operations as they so choose. The groups behind the lawsuit are seeking to have the rule vacated and enforcement permanently blocked. So I'm sure there'll be more updates there, but quite an interesting move forward. Came as a little bit of a surprise, at least in the timing side of things, Delaney.
Well, just ahead of that government shutdown, the U.S. Department of Labor issued a new wage rate rule for agricultural guest workers, marking the first major update to the H-2A program in more than 30 years, effective on October 2nd of this year. The interim rule revises wage rates for all 50 states and Puerto Rico, aiming to make labor more accessible for farmers struggling with rising production costs. AFBF President Zippy Duvall says the updated rates are essential for many growers, noting that low commodity prices and high expenses such as inflation have made it difficult for some farm families to remain in business. He also adds that the new rule provides hope for those reliant on H-2A programs, and the Farm Bureau will work with the administration to ensure transparency, predictability, and clarity during implementation. National Council of Agricultural Employers President Michael Marsh says the new rule addresses long-standing challenges that have forced some U.S. growers out of business, allowing Canada and Mexico to capture market share. He also notes that past wages, rising rates, and non-farm wages limited production and contributed to higher food prices, while the updated methodology will begin incorporating food-specific data to better reflect agricultural conditions. While the regulation comes with its own challenges and is expected to face quite a bit of legal scrutiny, both Marsh and Duvall emphasize the importance of Congress enacting permanent reforms to create benefits for farmers and workers alike, Tanner. So going to be a little ways till we see some probably additional movement on that, but we did see at least some there.
Yeah, some progress. I know that's been a big concern. We are involved with many organizations that are lobbying to have clarity provided. Well, Mexico is seeing a sharp increase in cases of the flesh-eating New World screwworm, with the latest government data showing that nearly 6,700 confirmed animal infections and nearly a 32% jump from mid-August. The outbreak, which began last November, is moving north through the country, raising concerns about its approach of the U.S. border. Now, we all know this parasite, which can kill livestock if untreated, has now prompted the U.S. to keep its border mostly closed to Mexican cattle imports since May. We've also seen Mexican officials report that the infected animals in recent shipments have been treated effectively, preventing further spread. Dr. Rosalind Biggs, Oklahoma State University Extension beef veterinarian, does warn that the U.S. producers may not be prepared if the parasite does cross the border into the U.S. She has stated that the proximity of these cases that are now just 70 miles from the U.S. border makes this the right time for producers to invest in safe, functional cattle handling facilities. Proper infrastructure not only helps manage screwworm risk, but can improve overall cattle operations, period. We'll continue to have updates on the New World screwworm, Delaney, but we also have some updates that come from the American Egg Board that are now saying the U.S. egg industry is still recovering from losses that have been caused by the highly pathogenic avian influenza, or HPAI, as we all know. Now, as fall birds are migrating, the migration period that picks up here will have more than 70 million birds that were lost between October and March of last year. So hopefully not on the beginning of this, Delaney, for the next one. CEO Emily Metz did tell Brownfield recently that the industry is repopulating as quickly as they possibly can. The industry is not fully recovered yet. She says egg prices have eased from record highs over the summer. They're at their lowest point in over 2 years, as bird flu levels are also at that same area. She's noted that World Egg Day is October 10th and highlights the importance of eggs in global nutrition, and that this is a way to stabilize the U.S. egg supply.
Well, October is also National Co-op Month, a time to celebrate cooperatives as a trusted way to do business and build stronger, more resilient communities. The National Farmers Union is joining cooperatives and credit unions across rural America in the annual observance, which has been celebrated, Tanner, since 1964. I didn't realize that. I think
that's
the
a long
first
time
time we reported on it, too. This year's theme is Cooperatives Build a Better World, which was chosen by the National Cooperative Business Association to align with the United Nations Declaration of 2025 as the second International Year of Cooperatives. So not only is it National
Was
Farmers
1954 the first year of National
Day, I'm
Cooperative?
guessing that's, what it means. It's National Farmers Day, and it's a Cooperative Month. So cooperatives enterprises have been central, of course, to the mission of the Farmers Union since founding in 1914 and as the Farmers Educational and Cooperative Union of America. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, also on Sunday, October 12th, it's National Farmers Day, Tanner.
Well, it's time for the second interview of today. Michelle, like we said, is out at the World Dairy Expo. She was there last week and came across a new campaign that caught her attention. It's like baseball cards, but for dairy farmers. The effort was led by the dairy farmers of Wisconsin and aimed to connect people of all ages with those behind their dairy products. So she had a conversation with Suzanne Fanning, the Chief Marketing Officer for the state's checkoff program. Let's get into that interview right now.
Well, we're here at the World Dairy Expo, and here in Wisconsin, The checkoff here is called Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin. Here with Susan. Susan, tell me a little bit about who you are and who is Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin.
All right, I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin, and we are excited here at Dairy Expo because we are launching a new campaign for consumers and for farmers, and it is called Born to Dairy. It's all about showcasing the personalities, the pride, the heritage, and the quirks of dairy farmers.
Now we have some cards here. Tell me a little bit about what these cards are.
We do. So this is just one small part of the campaign. We have some trading cards that have the different personas. So part of this campaign, it just kind of shows you like the different types of personalities. So this one is the Gen Z farmer, and you can see that this is actually the current Allison Dairyland. So she is the Gen Z farmer. And so this is a campaign that has some humor behind it, and we're launching it in a partnership with Midwest icon Charlie Barron. So you know it's going to be pretty funny. And so with our Gen Z farmer, we say that she is slowly convincing dad that the cloud is not just about the weather. So that's her, and she's been down there signing autographs. She's down there right now. We also have the farm MacGyver. So we've had people stopping by downstairs and saying, oh, my dad literally calls himself the farm MacGyver. So he's that farmer who can literally fix anything on the farm with duct tape and baler twine. And we say he hasn't thrown anything away since 1997, just in case. Then we all know that the face of farming is changing, right? So farming isn't just necessarily that iconic farmer that you think of. There are like so many just stunning, brilliant, independent women who are farming. And a lot of the time people look at them and they say, oh, you're way too pretty to be a dairy farmer. So we developed an entire persona that we call the Dairyland Darling. And you might recognize her because she is modern day farm chick. So she was our model for that one. We say she's lethal with a pitchfork and a pout. So I don't want to go through all of them because I don't want to take up all of our time, but there are all kinds of fun personas. We're going to be constantly adding more, and we're just hoping that people will recognize themselves or they'll recognize a friend or a neighbor in all of these different personas. So you'll have fun looking at them, the trading cards or the website if you go to borntodairy.com.
Why do you think this was a need to do this campaign?
Well, we want consumers to realize, we want them to see these farmers as human, and we want them to see their personalities. We want them to see the fun side of them. We want them to see that in many cases they are just like them. They are their friends. They are their neighbors. And we want them to support Wisconsin dairy. So the call to action for consumers is really just to say, support these farmers by looking for the Proudly Wisconsin badge, by eating Wisconsin cheese, by drinking Wisconsin milk, by loading up on butter and ice cream, and who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah, I know I'm a proud Wisconsinite too. If we think about farmers, you want to help elevate them. What advice do you have for farmers wanting to share their stories? This is certainly a resource for them to say, yeah, there's these cool cards. So what would you say broader that advice you would give to farmers?
If they want to share their story on social, I would say, definitely be authentic, because people want to see like what's truly happening. I would say be consistent over being perfect. I would say be consistent. Decide you're going to share like 2 times a week and just stick to it and don't worry about being perfect. I would say for sure tap into that community too. You should tag us at America's Dairyland would definitely be a good one. Hashtag Proudly Wisconsin, and we want to share your story as well. So remember that you're part of the community, and we want to help amplify your efforts.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for joining.
All right, thank you.
Well, we thank Michelle for that. I do think the Iowa State Fair did a little bit of those trading card ideas as well. But what do we see in the markets this week?
Well, many believed it could go until the end of the month for a government shutdown, but we've seen no WASD this week, no weekly export sales, and of course a myriad of other government reports have been paused. The government was idle for another day, making it the 4th longest shutdown in history. Sources claim this is delaying the farm subsidy payment program as well, expected to total between $12 and $13 billion. And as we reported on earlier, many farmers are expecting to see additional subsidies continue. But even with over half of the U.S. harvest season to go, cash markets have already been starting to firm, especially for corn. Soybean futures, however, continue to soften over concerns of trade, with the U.S. set to add additional fees on China related to vessels starting next Tuesday. Reports indicate this could add $50 per metric ton to import costs, deterring buyer interest. China has now stated they will also retaliate with an equal charge for all U.S.-related vessels. Buyers continue to look to Brazil to source their soybean needs, and the country is on track to reach 102 million tons by the end of October, excuse me. Tanner, if we see this will surpass the annual volumes of 24 and 23. So this is going to be a record year for Brazilian exports. More yield data is also being collected as the U.S. harvest progresses, and many analysts are lowering their production estimates as a result. But on soybeans, we're seeing very minimal changes to yields. Corn, we're seeing some sizable cuts. Some analysts have the U.S. corn yield down to 181 bushels per acre for a national average. While this would be up from a year ago, it is 5.7 bushels lower per acre than the USDA September WASDE estimate. We have no October WASDE, so we don't know what they would predict this year. And lastly, as we turn our attention to livestock, hogs have been at their lowest trading level in quite some time.
That's right. And just a reminder to our listeners, thanks for hanging out with us. You can find us on all our social media platforms. Have a happy day. It's your day, National Farmers Day. So thanks again for tuning in. But what do you say, Delaney, for today? Should we let those listeners go?
Let's let them go.